Happy Thursday, y'all. Okay, so I am bringing on someone who is a little bit different, not an author. She's not a little bit different, but it's a little bit different because it's not an author or a podcaster, not an author or a bookstagrammer, but someone that can help us in our businesses. Gosh, we need as much help as we can get because we wear so many hats. So,
hello.
Hi,
Gigi.
Okay, you jumped on super quick. I love it.
Well, I was watching. I've never done one of these, so I was like, I got to be there. I got to be ready.
Okay, well, thank you for joining mine as your very first one.
Of course. Thank you for having me.
Welcome to Let's Go Live. I'm Gigi Meyer, and I have with me business management consultant and podcaster, Kristen Lettini. Welcome, Kristen.
Thank you. Thanks, Gigi. Thanks for having me.
I'm so excited to talk to you because we're going to break this down into you're very tactical. And I think that as authors, we need all the help we can get because we wear many, many hats. And I should back that up. Solopreneurs, we wear so many hats. So you talk about systems, automations, and ways that you help us. And so I am all ears because I want to learn how you can help our listeners.
Absolutely. I'm here for it. And I took your, this is a coffee chat very seriously. I have my cup of tea ready to go. I'm like, okay, we're going to do this.
I got my water.
Excellent.
I feel like I take water with me everywhere now.
Same. Well, I also have the water. I have the cough drops and I have the tissues because I'm still getting over this cold thing. So I've got it all.
I know. I have my cough drops, but I always do because I feel like I always have a perpetual, Houston, there's so many allergies and pollen in the air. So I always have something going on. Yeah. Which I hate.
Yeah. Here we're a few weeks, I think, behind, but we have the back to school. We're on the back to school germs. So it's all good.
Sharing's caring.
It is. It is. So let's share. I want to share all about systems.
Okay, so tell us exactly, we'll start the first half with the business management part.
Okay.
And then we'll get into the podcasting. So tell us though, what is a business management consultant? What does that mean? What do you do?
So solopreneurs hire me to help create systems and build things to make their business work so they can focus on the writing, the being the author, or whatever their trade or passion is. Because you and I both know there's a whole lot more than just writing to be an author, right? Or editing or publishing. There's way more beyond that you need to do. And sometimes they just have to be done. We don't love them. And sometimes we might enjoy them, but there's a whole lot of things on that list. So the more we can simplify and systemize and automate, I'm all for it because I want to focus on the thing, right? And for me, the thing is building the systems. It's like a puzzle for me. But for you and your audience, I assume it's more writing focused.
And you hit it right on the head. So I think when people are like, I want to be a full-time author, they have this fantasy that it's just sitting around and writing books all the time. And it's not. There is the creative outlet and the creative side. And we talk a lot about craft and writing and goals and journey on my lives. But there's this humongous business aspect that I feel that we're constantly in a push-pull. Yeah. So if you focus over here, something is lacking on the business side. And then if you work too much in your business side, you're not, producing the books.
Yeah. Yeah. And I put out a solo episode and I posted about it today. The only way you can have the flexibility and freedom to sit down and write with a cup of coffee or however you like to do it. Or for me, go have lunch with a friend during the day because I do work for myself now. I can do that. Is the planning. So it seems counterintuitive, but if you plan and you get ahead and have the space, then you have the flexibility to do things your way and have the time or that freedom.
Oh, but I think that's what we all draw us to. You're a former reformed, I should say, corporate girly.
I am. I know.
And so that was one of the things when we sat both in corporate America, you fantasize about, oh my gosh, only if this or that, if I sat at home and I wrote full time, or if I sat at home and worked for myself, or worked in my business, how great would it be that I have freedom? Yeah, you can go and take a 10 o'clock yoga class because maybe you're working at 7 o'clock, or we're on here marketing our companies at 7 o'clock on a Thursday. So yeah, we can go off to a 10 o'clock yoga class.
Yeah, it's true. And honestly, that's how I found some of the tools that I'm using today, because when I left corporate America, I was like, oh, wow, I have the entire day free. This is amazing. Yet still somehow I was like, what do I work on first? Like, and at that time, I just had the podcast. So I was like, how is it still so hard? And I was managing, back-to-back Zooms from 8 to 5 every day before. And now I'm like, huh, what do I do first? It was just a strange phenomenon. So yeah, we need some structure.
Oh yeah, because we go from, I told you previously, 80-hour work weeks where like people just book on your calendar and you just look and it tells you where to go and who to talk to and what to say,
Yep.
to now where you have to create your own schedule. So tell us, like, what are some of the common challenges when clients come to you? What is their challenges that you solve for, the most common? And then we'll go down from there.
Yeah. So I'd say one of the easiest is scheduling. So I've interacted with many, now over 100 guests on my podcast. And so scheduling, like when somebody sends me a link and it's easy peasy for me to go in and click and sign up, I'm like, woo, I love it. That was a great experience. And when someone's like, okay, can you do next Wednesday at 3 or 4? And you're like, what? Like, by the time I get back to you, those times might fill up and it just makes for a clunky experience. So I'd say one of the simpler places to start would be online scheduling. Some people may already have that, but an online scheduler, whether you're having interviews or meetings, something to help facilitate that and take away the headache of scheduling, especially if you don't have an assistant, right? Like you may have had in corporate, somebody doing that for you. Excuse me. Getting paid, right? We all want to get paid. So if you're putting out product or work and you're ready to get paid, how are you invoicing it? You want that to look professional. You want it to be timely. You don't want to have to worry about to have to chase down this person to pay me. Like, I want those reminders to go automatically. Yeah. Not only does it look professional, but I think for me, it takes a little bit of the emotional, like, ooh, I have to ask for money out of it. And I don't know if that's something you struggle with, but like when you're first getting started, it's like, oh, how do I ask them to pay me? Like, it's a weird, pricing can get pretty emotional. So I like that the reminders also for me take a little bit of the emotion out, because I just set it and forget it. They're going to get a reminder the day before it's due and my job is done.
On the flip side, because I do have a team that I work with, I have 2 different editors and I have my graphics designer. And so, I have a team of people and I can tell, when I'm on the receiving end, some of them are set up like a business and it is very automated on the invoice. And I don't know why. I have something where if you invoice me a certain way, I always get it. If you invoice me another way, I never get it. It's like Google blocks or my email system blocks. I don't know. And heck, if I know how to whitelist.
Yeah, that's not me either.
But that's what you're saying, because if I slip up and it blocks and I don't get it, I don't want to look like a bad customer to my team. Like, I'm willing to pay. It's not, but I just didn't get the notice. And so I've had that. One of my vendors is super set up professional, and she has that reminder that comes in. And then I have other ones that'll just like, it's just different. So you can tell where people are in their business by how they invoice. So I'm glad you mentioned that.
Yeah.
You want to back up one step, schedulers. I love how you scheduled, because it's like corporate, right? Yeah. We have access to other people's schedules, not to see the exact details, but to see what time they're available. And I can do that on yours.
Yeah.
So what tool is that that's, thrifty or cost effective that authors could use, or anyone, a solopreneur or a podcaster could use?
Yeah, there's a number of them. But I will say, I'm probably jumping ahead a little bit here, but I use 17 Hats. It's a CRM and it is also super affordable. But one of the many benefits and features is online scheduling. So I did start out with a Calendly and I was paying for that separately. I think that was like, at some point, like $10 a month, something nominal, right?
What is that called?
Calendly.
Oh. Okay.
There's a lot, but that's where I started. And then when I moved to the CRM, I got the scheduling and the invoicing and more things. So I was like, oh, I'm paying for one. And so with like a referral code that I can share with your listeners for 50% off, you could do the basic level for $75 for the year. So I think it's super affordable. To me, I'm like, no brainer. Like, I can send my invoices and schedule, and for $75, like, that to me is wow. So
that is one of my questions because I'm not familiar with it, and then we'll talk about your other tools.
Yes.
Okay. So you said solopreneurs come to you with the scheduler, the invoicing. What are other common problems that they have that you solve for?
Yeah, so a lot of times I hear like they're just bogged down with their inbox, right? You're off writing, you're not sitting at your inbox, maybe at your desk, but you don't want to be in your inbox because it's going to mess with your mojo, right? You need to be writing and
I
focused.
don't know anyone who's like, yes, email. I
Right?
think we're
No,
all like,
no,
oh.
said no one ever. But you don't want to miss out on leads or opportunities, right? Somebody saying, come on this press conference or come talk about your book, right? Like we don't want to miss out on those opportunities. So some sort of lead, I call it leads. I don't know what you would call it in the author world, opportunities. So how do you funnel those into one spot? And then when you're ready to address them in your inbox or wherever it is, in my case, it's in the CRM. Where do you, I have a fly in the room. How do you tame that chaos, right? So just managing the inbox. And so one of the ways I do that with the 17 Hats CRM is you build an automation, right? So when somebody fills out my contact form on the website, hey, I'm interested in X, Y, and Z, they get an email automatically. Great. You know, I heard you're interested in this, set up time with me. Or, hey, tell me more. I'm going to send you a little 3-question questionnaire. What exactly is it about project management that's bothering you or holding you back? So you can set that all up ahead of time so that your client or your customer gets that Amazon experience of like instant response, even if I'm not sitting at my desk, because that's the dream, right? I want to enable those leads to move down the pipeline for me without like having to be on email every 5 seconds.
Okay, I think that is brilliant because let's be honest, we all use our inbox as its own filing system and things just sit there. And as things come in, the other things just go down. And then you're like, what was that I was supposed to do? And you have to like scroll back it up. And sometimes you can't find it.
Yeah. Yeah. So a workflow will either do it for you because you've set it up to go, or it'll prompt you at the right time. Like, hey, it's been 3 days. Do you want to do this now? If you set it up.
Oh, yeah.
So maybe you don't want it to go automatically. You want to say, oh, I really like, you want to personalize it a little further, but beyond names and address and those types of details, you can set it up to prompt you at the right time. So I always say it's like a short-term investment of time and money to set it up.
Yeah.
But then the long-term ROI is just, it's so worth it.
But that's where you come in, right? Because I tell you, as an author and solopreneur, everything falls on you. So what do we all do? We go out to YouTube University and try and teach ourselves all this stuff. Or maybe you'll know someone who can help you, like a friend. I've gone out to Fiverr for, email marketing, automation. I mean, just so much I've had to go because I don't know a contact. And so that's where you slide in because you are the subject matter expert. You're like, pay whatever you said with the discount code, $75 a year, and then you can help them set it all up, right?
Yeah. And one of the things I was thinking in our, like putting my notes together before we were going to chat, like, is if you just take, not take advantage of, leverage, someone like me and have a discovery call, because hopefully if it's not me, they're going to share ideas like I would, like, hey, why don't you try this? This is what I would do if you were working with me. And in those 30 minutes, like, you're going to get a heck of a lot more detail than you would from your YouTube's Google searching of like, where do I begin, right? So, and you can take it or leave it. You can take it and DIY it, right? Okay, sure. I'm going to go use 17 hats like Kristen suggested. Or, I'm going to go to somebody else. We didn't click. I'll find another tool. Or, yeah, I'm going to work with her or whoever you speak to. And like, let's just get it done. I'm going to outsource this right now. So I feel like it's a pretty low bar, low investment to have those discovery calls in any area that you're looking to outsource, because hopefully you're going to get some good recommendations. I'm not going to do it for you after a discovery call, right? Yeah. But okay, here's a way forward, and you can decide if you want to take that path.
Well, I know as me being a little bit more established, this is year 2, so I published 2 years ago in August. So I have 10 books, and you're fighting for time. Like, I feel like as a solopreneur, you can work all the time. The office is always open, and we talk, there's always boundaries around that we need to set up. But at some point, it becomes where I know a lot of authors don't have a high budget, and you have to pay for things like editing. If you're not a graphics designer, you have to pay for your covers. But I think for me, being at my level, a little higher up or further along, time is money. Yeah. So you do it and pay whatever, or I have to do it and muddle through and muck through, and it takes me forever to figure out automations and that, or I can have you do it, and then I can be, in productivity with a new book.
Yeah. I mean, that's a great example. Actually, I learned from one of my podcast guests early on. She talks about this power of outsourcing. Like even when you don't have the budget, you don't think you can, like I was spending 2+ hours editing one podcast episode, and podcasts are not bringing in income for me, right? So I was like,
Right.
This is not my forte. This doesn't seem very productive. I could be working on clients and billing that time
Mm-hmm.
if I didn't have to do this editing. So with her advice and encouragement, I was like, okay. So I got myself a podcast editor. Shout out to Caitlin. And this has been a while now. So it's life-changing because I invest in Caitlin. Here's the episode. Please edit it. And then I can go and do something else, right? I can have another interview, or I can have, work with another client. So yeah, as much as we're all trying to make our budgets work, right? We can't spend everything. We're not there yet. And even if we were, we may not want to. Where is it wise to outsource? So if automations and systems aren't your thing, like there's somebody else's, like me.
Oh, no, I completely agree with you because you get a best of breed, right? So you think you may know podcast editing, and then you hire a professional who does it, and you're like blown away.
Yep. Yeah, sometimes she'll be like, that sounded, scratchy. And I'm like, I hear nothing, but cool, make it better. She has an ear for it.
We talked before. I have a podcast, Literary Lines, and so I ship mine off to an editor, and he puts them everywhere. And you're right, they get really picky about the audio, and you're like, it sounds good, but they just have an ear for it. He knows how to write the show notes. So best money ever spent.
For real, I agree.
So so those were the three, like your CRM. What other things do you help with? Is it always like a package deal? Is it a la carte? Is it depending on these discovery calls, and where do you go from there?
Yeah, as much as I like to systemize, I always try to stress, like, it's not a one size fits all, because the system needs to work for your business, for your efforts. And honestly, it's still the billing and the pricing model is still something I'm trying to perfect. But for now, it's been mostly like project based, like, okay, you're going to hire me to build X number of workflows or build this system for you, get it started. And then an hourly basis after that, if you want support. Like I have one client who I love, and she'll just be like, hey, can you do this? And I'm like, sure. And she just keeps coming up with things like, can you make this happen? Yeah, I can make that happen. I can make an email go when you hit this button and somebody says they want this instead. So it's been a mix of both. I'm still trying to figure out like the perfect pricing structure for me.
Yeah.
But so far I'd say project-based.
Okay, so for those listening, what are typical projects? Because I know I love system and automation, and we talked a little bit about who I follow and online and waiting for him to come out with his.
Yep.
But anyway, I've been waiting a year already. So what is typical when you say systems and workflows and projects? Give us like some really tactical stuff.
Yeah, I've had a number of clients who are already in a system like the 17 hats.
Okay.
And they just know they're not using it to its maximum ability. Or they're like, yeah, I got in because somebody I follow said to go in, but now I don't know what to do. And
Right.
I've either made a mess or I'm just not using it and I'm paying for it and I'd like to make use of it.
Mm-hmm.
So those are some of my best examples, because they're already in, they already see the value in it, but they're like, I don't have time to go figure out how it all works.
Correct. Especially Notion. I know that you're in Asana, but Notion's another one. It's so robust.
Mm-hmm.
It's also overwhelming because you're like, I don't even know where to start. I need to set it all up, but I don't want to take the time out of production or to do it. So yeah.
Yeah. And that's why I say too, like, I encourage anyone to try it out. Both Asana and 17 Hats, which are the two that I play the most in day to day. You can get started for free. 17 Hats has a free 1-week trial. Asana has a free version that I continue to use. I have not yet upgraded to the paid version of Asana. And that's what I am like, let's use the free version if we can. So I encourage you like to play around, just because it might not. You might like the colors better over in Notion, or you might like the structure. Like, I'm not going to force feed anything down anyone's throat. It's got to work for you and your business. But those are where I play and I have a lot of fun.
Yeah. So what type of industries are the solopreneurs representing? Are they creatives? Are they more analytical?
Yeah. And this again, I'm still figuring out, am I going to work across one or two industries, or is it industry agnostic? But I like to think of it as My ideal partner is a creative solopreneur because they want to focus on the flowers, the writing, the photography, and not so much the administrative tasks. And that's where I can say, oh, let me help you. And I love seeing like everyone's craft come to life. But yeah, and I also, coming from the corporate world, like you're so focused on that client experience. So I can't help but when I book with someone or I purchase something from them, I'm like, oh, I totally would have done this instead, or that I liked that touch that they did, right? So I'm constantly assessing that and like making notes for myself, for my clients, like, oh, we can do this instead. Why don't we send an email after they book with you and then thank them a month later, let them know you really had a good time. I don't know.
Oh my gosh, I love that. So you're like a mystery shopper.
A mystery shopper. I keep them to myself unless it's a client and they're asking to say what should we do instead. I don't go around telling them, but yes, it's a mystery shopper of sorts where I'm like filing those for the next day.
But I love that because you do, how do I say this? Okay, so if you go and buy, let's say you sign up for an author's newsletter, some of them come automatically, some are a drip campaign through. So you can kind of tell how professional or how much time and resources they put into their email, because it's not the ones that you are sent every single week that you sign up for. It's those initial launch and how they flow through. And you can tell from that experience, I guess, the level of professionalism, or maybe it's, how much experience they have.
Interesting. So you think if you sign up for something and then you get a series of things before you get the regular email, that's like higher class?
Well, I think they've spent time and resources and energy to focus on the customer experience, or in this case, the reader experience.
Okay. Interesting. I mean, I agree, but I hadn't like judged people for not having a longer drip before.
Well, I've noticed just in the more, I don't want to say successful because that's always relative how you quantify that, but just in the authors that have a huge library of work, they have a very structured drip campaign. And so they'll usually have free lead magnets, like go to my newsletter or go to my website, sign up, or however they sign people up organically, whether it be in the back of the book or, campaign, book swap, something like that. However, when they get that email address, some of them have a very, succinct 3 emails of welcome. Did you get your free book? Here's another free book, or here's another, or go here. It's very structured. So to me, that lets me know that they are pretty accomplished in their writing, but also they're really working in the business side.
Yeah.
And there's others that are set up, that you sign up and you never even see or hear from them. And all of a sudden, 6 weeks later, you get a pop-up all of a sudden, and you're thinking, where did this come from? I don't even remember signing up for it.
Yeah.
So it's kind of that high touch.
I have a lot of thoughts on this. One is, I feel like, yes, the more established, then maybe have the team and time and effort to like focus. Because I know, I could probably have a more built out. I have a workflow where if you sign up for my freebie, you get an email with a delivery, and then it lets you know, okay, now you're going to get my email every Thursday, right? It's one email, and then you're on. So hence I was like, oh, you're judging people like that? 2, you're right. The people who just take your email and then don't show up for 6 months until they either have something to sell or tell you, and you're like, who are you? I don't remember signing up for your thing, like unsubscribe.
Exactly.
So yeah, I do judge that, and I agree with you. But hence, I don't particularly market this, but I do it for a client or 2. I do help with their email marketing because there's workflows to be set up in there as well. Actually, I do workflows. I just don't write their emails. That I do for the 1 or 2 that I'm like, I'm not trying to say I'm going to write your emails. Anyway, you can set those up pretty easy. I use Flowdesk, and they look, in my opinion, very professional. They're very easy to put together. And I can put together, once they get this email, wait 5 days, send them this one, and then add them to this segment. And like, that's easy peasy for me. But that could be something people need help with. And then there was a third thing I can't remember, but it was about this email. Oh, it's just really, it's all, whatever industry, it's always about the relationship. So whether you're building the relationship in the inbox, you're building it by having interviews, you're building it by reaching out to a publisher, editor, whoever you need for your next project. Like, it's about those relationships. And if it's hard. Those are the things in my mind, always in corporate America too, with the networking, that were easy to push down. Like, that's not urgent. That's not on fire. I'll reach out to him or her tomorrow. And then the next day and the next day. But if you have your project management set up to remind you, here are the things you need to do today, or a CRM with the reminders, yep, it's been 6 months, send that email to Heather and see how she's doing. It makes it a little easier.
Okay, so take us through, you said Flowdesk is the email that you happen to use. And then
Yep.
your CRM, which is 17 hats, and then there's Asana. So take us through each one of those tools.
Okay.
Or
So let's start.
use them or how your clients use them.
Yep. So let's start with Asana. This is where I feel like it's baseline. If you have no systems really, I like to start there. It's free, and I think it's pretty easy to use. It's very intuitive.
Okay.
But I use this for my day-to-day work management, and it's meant to be a collaborative tool. So it's designed for teams, but I very much use it just for me. It's me in there, and then my editor gets like one task assignment per episode. But it's mostly just for me. And I use it to plan. I have checklists. I have my content calendar. And what I really love, again, the freeness, and that with the click of a button, like sometimes you want to see a checklist. Sometimes I want to see a calendar. Sometimes I need a Kanban board where I call like the Post-it view. You know, you have like columns and stickies.
Oh my God.
And I can do that.
All right.
I can do that with the click of a button. I just dump it out of my brain and I can change the look, right?
Mm-hmm.
So for me, I like to start there. That can help me get organized. That can make sure I'm going to hit my deadlines. And I can put in separate projects. Like I zoom into one project. Okay, I'm writing this book today. Here are all the things to know about this book. But then I've got a separate project over here. And then I can put them together. I don't know how, like, without showing you on the screen, like I click a button and it folds them together. They can be color coded because I have to make it pretty. And I can see how everything comes together. I call it like layering.
Yes.
And that to me is the place to start with your planning, like making sure things don't fall through the cracks. It's not going to send the emails for you with the free version. They have paid versions, and also I don't think they're linked to email, but that's where I start. I would start there to get a lay of the land of here's everything I have going on in my solopreneur world. Here's how I'm going to get it done. Okay, now I know what I need to do today. Then,
okay,
go ahead.
I'll ask you a question there. So is it, for lack of a better word, a catch-all? It's your social media content, your calendar. It's also your to-do list. Is it your like annual to-do list? You know, because we don't have things that are due every single day. Let's say like as a solopreneur, you have tax preparation.
Mm-hmm.
Not all the time. Maybe it's quarterly or maybe you do it annually, that kind of thing. So does it have, can you break it out to where you have a grand master list of everything you want to achieve in your, like a vision board for your business, and then all the minutia, all the little tiny tasks?
Yes, yes, and yes. So I recommend setting it up with three sections, right? One is that planning calendar. So you could put in your big business goals. If I want to launch my book on this date.
Yeah, all the releases.
Yeah.
I have to get, you know, I have to be done writing it by this time. It has to go to my developmental editor or my line editor or my beta team or my ARC team. Or so you can go in and do your planning and then move those around, right? To figure out if you've allotted enough time for that next book and a proper marketing release.
Yes. And so those level of detail, I might not put in my planning zone, but I would put in my project zone. So this book has its own project plan, and here's all the deadlines, or here are all the milestones, right? And then book number 2 has its own timeline, and those are going to roll up into one big project management timeline, right? And it's going to say, ooh, these are overlapping. This is probably not a good, I need to adjust the launch date because I can't possibly do these 2 books and hit all these deadlines at the same time. So I have my planning space, which is like bigger picture, bigger goals. I like to outline holidays, observances. For me, my kids' time off from school is my time off typically. So like I'm getting the big picture up there. And then I have a detailed plan for each individual project, or each individual podcast episode has its own checklist. And then I have a third space, which I call like my Pinterest or headquarters. It's like a repository. So things may not live there. I might not have SOPs or reference docs or my affiliate links, anything that I'm frequently referencing or want to get to quickly, I put there, because you know that the time and cost of that switching, if I'm going from Asana to Google to the inbox, like I don't want to have to leave I want everything there. So I have those 3 spaces: the planning, the projects, and the repository.
Well, we as authors, we have links to our
Mm-hmm.
books, and you use those universal links 50,000 times. And you have to always I would be organized. I should put it in Excel or use your same ISBNs, and you have to look those up. So
Yep.
right now, all that and like Excel, but you're saying this is Excel on steroids.
Yeah, and actually, it's not Excel-y. It's like little Post-its of it's a Pinterest type board, but not picture-y,
Yeah.
not fancy like that. But I like that it's all in one spot, because if I need those links, if I need those codes,
Yep.
I don't want to have to go somewhere else to get them. I want them at my fingertips,
Do you keep your social media graphics there too?
You can. Asana won't post to Instagram or any platform for you like a later.com will, or not ManyChat. Yeah, later.
Yeah.
But I do plan out like, okay, I'm going to have a reel about 17 hats on this day, and I'm going to have a carousel about Asana on this day. Like, I plan to that level. I write the caption in there. You could download from Canva or wherever and then upload in Asana. But to me, it's an extra step I don't need. I'll just go over and grab it when I'm ready, or I'll, load it to Meta and schedule it. So you can, but I don't do that way.
Well, everybody that wants to post automatically is usually an extra charge, where Meta's like free. And sometimes Meta doesn't always interact with everybody seamlessly.
Yeah. I don't pay for a scheduler either. I use Meta, and then sometimes I'm like, oh, it doesn't do what I want. I'll have to do it manually. But at the same time, if I already have everything mapped out for me in Asana, I just copy paste and pull it over.
Easy. Okay. I think we got that one down. So 17 hats.
Okay, so 17 Hats is a customer relationship management platform. So it sounds like a big scary thing, but it's literally just a place to keep all of your client and project information together, right? So you might have I don't know how this works in the author world. Like, I might have a client come in for one project. We work together. They have a contract, invoice, emails, all that done. They come back 6 months later for another one. I have that whole history. I don't have to go looking like, what did John Smith ask me to do last time? It's all there. So I have that. It's all together.
Well, vendor services, like I mentioned, all the vendor team that I have, they would truly benefit from that.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, like everybody could in some way. It has the online scheduling. I mentioned the invoices, the automated workflows. I'm trying to think. It does so many things. I'm like, I'm missing half of them. But so I literally have 3 screens, and for most of the day I will have Asana up on one with like, okay, you got to do these 10 things today. Mm-hmm. And my CRM 17 Hats up on the other, because maybe I need to send a quote, or, workflow is telling me that it's time to do this step. So I work them in tandem. I don't use, you can put some to-dos in your CRM and 17 Hats, but I like to keep them separate. Like, my brain doesn't work like that. But I do have them connected so that when a project is booked, when a client books with me in 17 Hats, it automatically goes over to Asana. I have a Zap built in the background.
Of course you have an automated workflow.
Yes, because who wants to manually copy that every time?
I know. Okay, and then Flowdesk is just for emails. If you're sending, because you do that too, right? Newsletter marketing.
Yes. So yeah, and I use Flowdesk to send my weekly email. I just sent one today, and you can build workflows into there. So like I said, I have a freebie. Actually, I have a freebie to build your content calendar in Asana. It walks you through step by step, like, here, make a layer for this, make a layer for this, hit this button and see your calendar, and it's color coded. So I have a freebie for that, and when somebody puts their name in for that, they get an email that says, here's the freebie, go and download it, and now you're going to be on my list. And then the next Thursday, they're going to get an email. So I built the workflow there, so I don't, literally when somebody raises their hand, like, I'm not touching it. I just say, oh, okay, cool, there was a new subscriber.
So nice. So does this, a lot of people use Google Calendar to keep, live, like if they're running errands, you're like, oh, I have this. So does this integrate with Google?
It absolutely does. Mm-hmm. Actually, I have all my calendars in a Google Calendar, because that is you can use a 17 Hats calendar or a Google Calendar with 17 Hats, and I use all the Google because I can separate them. Like, these are my leads, these are my booked clients, this is my podcast calendar, and I can cross-check them. So and I wanted to touch on this before I forgot. What online scheduling, I feel like so many people are nervous to open up because like, I don't want somebody booking at a weird time, right? But it doesn't work like that. You set the availability that says I only take calls Mondays and Wednesdays from 10 to 2. Whatever your schedule is, you set that availability, and then you add the rules on top. So it says, okay, cross-check these other 5 calendars. And then whatever's left is what somebody can click on to book. So it's not just like a free-for-all. They have access to your calendar, kind of like in corporate. But you set the rules. So you can set those boundaries, if you will.
Yeah, so it's not like corporate where you put in your lunch just to eat at your desk,
Yes.
your little salad or your sandwich. And then people are like, why are you always booked at noon? I don't know, just to eat.
Trying to eat my lunch.
It's not like I'm going out on 2-hour clients. I'm just trying to like eat so I can survive like the rest of my day and all these meetings. So yeah.
Yeah, I know the feeling. So anyway, I didn't want to be nervous that like they can just book whenever. No, that's not the case.
Does it also work with iPhone calendars? Because I know some people still use iCal.
I don't know offhand. I think you'd still have to have some connection with Google to make it get to iCal.
Okay.
But I use the Google.
Okay, so tell us a success story that someone has come to you so that way it's, relatable.
Yes. I had an online education coach this is when she was using 17 hats, and she's like, I know I'm not doing this right. Can you help me? And so she was using the online scheduler. She was booking up clients. She'd have a full week ahead of her. And then she's like, I get so many cancellations because it's online and whatever. They hadn't paid her yet. And she's like, no, at the last minute, I can't book the slot and I didn't get paid. So you have the capability with this scheduler to collect payment. So now when they book with her, yes, I want this 1-hour course with you. They have to pay before they can get that time on her calendar. Oh. So she, overnight, improved, I don't know by how many percentage, like majorly improved her cash flow because she's like, oh, great. Now they're paying me. I don't have to chase them after the fact. So we were able to automate and switch that up to the front.
Yeah, I know. It's, I was just thinking because I always schedule manually for these lives. And, life happens, but I always confirm, the Sunday before, and that's where but if I had a way to automate that and be like, hey, we still on, etc.
Yeah.
Is it always through email automation, or can you do like social media? Like,
it is not, for me, I have not ventured into any social media automation, at least through 17 hats. I mean, there's the ManyChat, like comment the word calendar and I'll send you this, that type of social media automation, but that's all I know of. I don't know from the CRM to that side.
Gotcha. Because, we do a lot of communication in Messenger or DMs. And so sometimes what I've noticed is when it's the younger generation, I'm like, oh, email.
Yeah, it's true. It's true. But honestly, for me, the DMs, they get lost. Like if I read it and I don't go back, and then even if sometimes if I mark it as unread, it'll go away. I'm like, what happened? I left it as unread, so I'd remember to reply. But email, it's there. I can find it. But definitely, and even with the Calendly, like I used to have automated reminders when somebody books, either the day before. And in 17 Hats, you can say how many days or weeks before. You can send one the day of. Don't forget we're meeting tonight, and it plugs in the time and the place. So yeah, I don't have to do anything. I set it up once, and then the reminders go.
Okay, so do you have an example of a specific project that a one-off, they came to you and is successful and completed?
Yeah. Trying to think. I'm like, let me think of a different good one for you. So I've worked with florists, coaches, photographers, and I'm trying to think if there's any other key.
Is florist for the CRM?
Yeah.
Okay.
She was actually one of my first CRM clients. She was one who was in there and was like, some florists I follow told me to use this, and I'm in here and I don't know what I'm doing.
Okay. So, but she's not doing like or maybe I guess you can do newsletter marketing with,
She's doing newsletter marketing. I do support her on that. And what is really helpful for her, right? She wants to go and make the beautiful arrangements.
Yes.
But she needs to have leads. She needs to have the pipeline filled. So she's got a form on her website, contact me. Okay, great. What are you interested in? A wedding, a bridal shower, baby shower, whatever. What date? Great. And they get an automated email because they said wedding. They get a questionnaire with these 5 questions. Tell me more about your wedding. Okay, great. Now they get an automated email once they complete that says, okay, I'm available. Book 30 minutes with me for a consult. And she's not touched it once.
Oh, dang. Okay, let me start the show right here. The behind the scenes, she has a website, and we all have them, contact us and all that. So when someone fills it out, and if they pick on, I guess it's a drop down, birthdays, get well, wedding, whatever. So when they fill out the online form, it goes to her. Whatever they pick, then it goes back to them with a questionnaire. They complete it, and then it goes back to her, and she's done none of it.
She's done none of it. Yep. And then she doesn't have to, we've already sort of vetted it for her. The system has vetted it for her, and she doesn't have to, she's not prompted to lift a finger until all that information is on her desk.
Oh, wow. See, us authors, we need that, right? Because we're trying to do so many things and we wear so many hats. Mm-hmm. That's genius.
Yeah. And even if it's just I understand, because some people are like, well, I may not have my process fully baked, right? I don't know what they're going to need. But even if it's just an automated response that says, thanks so much for contacting me. Yeah. I'm going to get back to you in the next 24 hours. Just so people are used to that Amazon and that immediate gratification. So if you don't hit their inbox right away, yep, and you don't get back for 2-3 days, that's a huge loss.
Oh, yeah. And it could be, you're just busy, or like you said, you're buried in email or you're buried in DMs, so you can't catch up with it. Oh, I like that.
Yeah.
Okay, so how would people, if they want to work with you, how would they reach out to you?
So the easiest way is right here on Instagram. You can shoot me a DM, or my website is kristenlettini.com, and I have everything. I have a contact form on my page like that, so you should get an auto response of some sort depending on what you indicate you're interested in. Those are the 2 main ways. I like to keep it simple because I feel like if you give people too many places to go or things to do, probably not going to do any of them. So if Instagram's your thing, you can find me here, and otherwise the website, kristenlettini.com.
Okay, can you spell your last name?
Yes, it's Lettini.
I know, because I kept having to make sure that I had it spelled correctly with the 2 T's.
It's that my maiden name was so much more complicated. So when anyone questions Lettini, I'm like, oh, it's pretty easy. It's easy in comparison. You should have had my maiden name.
Okay, so switching gears, let's talk about your podcast.
Yes, let's talk about the podcast.
Yep. Okay, so same thing. Tell us the title. Tell us where we can find it.
Okay, so the title is Build Your Own Fairytale. You can find it on any of the major podcast platforms, Spotify, Apple, wherever you listen. And I'm super excited because just hours before jumping on, today, I literally hit 10,000 downloads. So I'm very excited about the milestone. Thank you. We're at 105 or 6 episodes. So it's been going, and I'm loving every minute of it.
10,000 downloads is huge because that's a lot. You have 105 episodes. That's a lot too. Girl, you're hitting some milestones.
Yeah, I'm excited. It's like I said, that's not where my income is coming from, but it's just a fun way to meet people like yourself and learn from others and share, because I wish I had this podcast, before I left corporate, because I feel like I'm sharing so many great ideas. I talk to people who've started businesses building sandcastles, making cookies, content creators, all sorts of interesting jobs that I didn't realize could be businesses before, and giving people things to think about, oh, I'm good at that. I can make that a business. Or I've already started my business, and oh, that's a really good learning that they're sharing with me that I can now take and run with,
Yeah, and I'm sure that you get gems too. So when you meet new people and talk and share ideas, it benefits all parties. Those listening,
it does.
And participating.
It does. And I always tell my in real life friends, I'm everyone I interview is my new best friend. I'm I follow them on all their channels. I try to like it every time I see something. I'm I don't know if they feel the same way, but I feel like I make us all sorts of new friends.
Love that. Okay, so tell us, what was the catalyst for you starting it?
The catalyst for me starting was being in a pretty like, I don't know what I'm doing, dark place.
Oh.
I was struggling, not struggling in work, but just struggling in like, why am I still doing this? I think I shared, well, we know, started in corporate. I was there for 13 years before I left, same company, before I left the company. And I just needed a creative outlet. I was so, I call it like dead inside to what was going on at work. I was like, I didn't have the time, but I knew I needed something to inspire me, to get me excited about the day, because my 9 to 5 wasn't cutting it anymore. And so if you go back to like episode 1, my whole first season was really just, how can we build a fairy tale, make life like 1% better? So I talked to people doing different things, like let's eat better, let's, I remember all of them, move better. How do you make lemons out of lemonade? Like somebody was dealt a pretty rough hand. Like, it was just a smattering of topics. And it wasn't until I left corporate that I felt like I could own this. Okay, I want to build a fairy tale outside of the traditional 9 to 5. Mm-hmm. So I'm always looking for guests with, to me, interesting jobs, right? Like, I didn't know that was a business. I didn't know you could have a business building sandcastles. Like, okay, this girl's doing it. Let's talk about it. So when I finally left corporate in 2022, I pivoted to focus on, okay, people with these careers they've built outside of the traditional 9 to 5, and sharing tips on how they do it. And then usually when it's an interesting topic, we'll get into tips about that topic as well. Like, oh, tips for writers, or if I want to take the best picture, if I'm talking to photographers, like it's a little bit, it's for the business focus, but then you also get some general tips in those areas, even if that's not where you're focusing.
I always think that's fascinating, like how people make money. There is a woman here in Houston who, she was a biochemist with one of the oil and gas companies, I think like Exxon, everybody knows them. And her creative outlet was stickers, like making stickers.
Yeah. Okay.
Now that's what she does full time. And she makes more making stickers and shipping them out, designing them, making them, and sending them, than she does at a biochemist.
Might have to talk to her.
I was thinking about that. I need to go and find her contact information, because she got into Michael's.
Wow.
When Michael's.
Wow, that sounds big time.
Yeah, they don't sell stickers anymore, but that was a few years. I think that was like pre-COVID or something like that. But anyway. And so that's interesting, though, that you had an identity shift after you left. Why is that? Did you give yourself permission, or did you feel pressure to hide that piece of you?
I definitely felt like it was something I didn't want out in the world, of this desire to be outside of corporate when I was still in it. That to me felt uncomfortable. I'm sure I could have. I don't think it was illegal, but it was something that I wasn't personally comfortable with. And so when I finally left, because I thought about leaving for a couple of years before I did it, then I felt like I could own it, and I could say, this is what we're talking about. So I think that was a me problem, but.
Well, we're with a major company that will go unnamed, but they're pretty high level.
Yeah.
So I understand that. Similar to me, I was the CAO of a very conservative financial institution. And so, yeah, you can't write smutty books.
Yeah. And I it was a great company, great people, great pay. It just, for me, I was like, this isn't getting me excited anymore. I think 13 years, I had a good run. I worked across 3 different functions, and I wanted to try something else. And you and I think, spoke about, right, it's almost that morbidity factor of like, I don't want to get to the end of the road here and be like, I should have tried. I should have tried something else, because I won't know until I try. Maybe I'm going to try something and it's going to suck, or I'm going to fail miserably, and I can always go back, right? I hope that door is open, but I won't know if I don't try.
Yeah, I think mine was a morbid comment, because I told you that I refused to be at a nursing home with regrets.
Mm-hmm.
So
yep.
I put everything on the table. I'm going to try everything. I'm going to do everything, because, we all think we're going to live forever, and we don't. That's where we're all equal, regardless of what you believe in, you will die.
Yep.
So, yeah. And I know what you're saying. It's not as though it was bad. We've talked about golden handcuffs in another conversation. But I think when things are so egregious, you're like, I have every right to leave. And we have this waterfall of reasons why we should leave. But when it's not egregious, and when it's just, I've dreamt a new dream, then it's a little bit harder to leave these corporate
Yeah.
good jobs, good people, great paying, good benefits. Then it's very uncomfortable. So, what made you take the leap?
Yeah. As like I said, it was a couple of years. I would say so my role was impacted in 2018. I was a high performer, had loved my job, and I got that call in to meet with my boss in HR, and I was like, what is this?
At 5 o'clock or something?
No, no, I mean, so it gave me like 6 months. It was a great runway. I landed, so I never actually left. But I was so thrown. I was like, what? This is happening? Like, this only happens to people who aren't doing a good job. Like, what are you doing here? So that was my first moment where I was like, oh, maybe I'm not going to be with this company forever. Because up until then, I think I would have thought I'd be there until retirement.
Well, we have a foundation of loyalty and trust. And so when that layoff or that consolidation or restructuring happens to you and you are a top performer or a good performer, it's kind of a betrayal of that trust that we had shared with our employers. And then it also shakes the foundation. And so you
Yeah.
think like, oh, I'm not always going to be safe.
Yeah. So I had that like major moment in 2018, landed, got a new role. So like I said, it never left. And then COVID hit. Like things were starting to simmer around. Then COVID hit, and at the time I was in employee health and wellness. So it was a crazy place to be. You know, trying to keep your global employee population healthy and inspire them. Meanwhile, my husband also had a corporate job. I had twin kindergartners trying to Zoom. Like it was a hot mess, to say the least. And so like I didn't have time or energy. I just got to keep going through the motions and keep alive, right? Like that's where I was.
Yep.
And so finally 2022. So now we're talking at least 4 years later from that initial, like maybe I should do something else. For my birthday in April, I said to my husband, we had talked about it before. He said, what do you want? I said, I want to know that I have your like official support in this. Because we had run the numbers, we had talked about it, but it was always like, yeah. I said, I want official, if you're into this, if you're going to support me in this, I want official support. So I got a letter from him and signed by him and my girls for my birthday saying like, we support you, let's do this. And then I left in June. So June of 2022, I gave my notice. I gave lots of time I didn't want to leave anybody hanging. But yeah, and it's funny because my biggest fear wasn't paying the bills. Like we had done the budget. We knew we could do this. Again, very lucky in that respect. My biggest fear was, what are people going to say? Like I was worried about people thinking this lady's nuts, and they might be right. But that was my biggest fear in taking that leap. And I just, after years and thinking about it and listening to all these other inspirational podcasts, I was like, I just have to do it. I have to do it. Otherwise, I'll never know.
I completely understand your story because when I tell people from the boardroom to the bedroom, from, CAO of a $4 billion publicly traded company to a romance author, they're like, what did you do? Do your kids know? Are you embarrassed? I mean, you would believe the amount of blowback I got.
Yeah.
The ironic thing is it kind of came from those closest to me. Definitely not my family. My family is ride or die. I could be like, I'm going to join the circus and be a clown. They're like, when do we buy tickets? That's my family.
Yeah.
My friends. And I thought I'd get a lot more criticism from the company I left, and they actually buy my books and they read them.
That's awesome.
So you never know where the support comes from, and it shifts and changes. But it is, that's a good point that you bring up, because even though we are our age, it still kind of matters what people think or how we're perceived, even though it totally shouldn't. And they're not paying your bills. They're not the ones with twin, kindergartners impacted by their mom, coming and working from home, right? But yet, I don't know why we listen to the naysayers.
Yeah, so it took a lot of self-talk to be like, let them talk. Well, they're going to think what they want to think. And largely they were supportive. I didn't have a lot of details to share, but they were happy I wasn't going to a competitor. I wasn't leaving on bad terms. It was just like, I need to try something new. So I'll keep in touch.
So you're 2 years into it.
2 years in, and yep.
How much have you changed, grown? You started at one place as your benchmark. It's probably, slightly different. Yep. What are your biggest lessons learned and probably your greatest strengths?
I feel like every day is a new masterclass, like a new learning, a new sub. I say I'm always learning. When people ask how it's going, I'm like, I'm always learning, always learning. So that's one thing. I would say looking back, I also gave myself the first 6 months at least to just do the podcast. And I was trying to figure out what I was going to do as the business side. I don't know why I used air quotes, the business side. And I wish I had started that sooner, because it literally took a friend of mine saying like, okay, well, let's go. What are you going to start charging for? Because I had helped her with some work. And I was like, oh yeah, I could have been doing this, right? Because the first time is never going to be the perfect time, the right time. Like I didn't do it right, but you may as well take those shots on goal earlier and more often. So I think my biggest learning and what I would share with somebody starting out is like, just start, man. Like you're not going to get it right. You're not going to get it perfect, but that's not what matters. What matters is that you took action and you started.
So are you saying that you did not have your business plan and all this laid out before you leaped?
I did not.
I love that though, because
my plan was figure it out. That was my plan.
But I love that because so there's this saying, and I'm going to get this adage wrong, but women wait till we're qualified before we apply for the job. Men apply for the job and they just get qualified after they get it, right?
Yep.
And so I feel like we do the same thing as women with our dreams, especially when you're married and you're a mom and, we have all this caregiving around us. So it's almost viewed as kind of frivolous for us to change course or have our own dreams or advance our own set of dreams, outside of the family unit.
Yeah. Yeah.
And so I think that's so brave that you're like, I'm going to leap and the net will appear.
Yeah. Hence, I'm like, people are going to think I'm crazy. But I mean, I had the confidence in, I will figure something out. Like, I'm not going to let us get kicked out of our home type of thing. Like, I'm going to find a way, even if I got to go back with my tail between my legs. Like, sorry, it didn't work. Can you hire me? Or somebody hire me? Or I'm going to find a way. So I had that confidence piece, but not how to run a business or the business is going to be X. Like that was the part that I'm still figuring out and I wish I started putting together earlier.
Well, then how did you decide on this? Systems, automation, workflows, the business side.
Yeah, this was because
quantify, right? Like when I can say romance author and people get it and they're like, oh, you write books, smutty books. Yes, I do write about sex, and so, but yours is a little bit more, they call it a log line, right? That's what we call it. So they're like, what do you do? Well, I write reverse age gap books. And so, it's what you say at parties, the punchline at a party.
Yeah.
So yours is a little bit trickier though. I imagine a lot of people are like, what does that mean?
Yes. And I'm still working on refining that party line. Because it's a little bit of, it's customized, right? And it's a little bit of, people don't know what CRM is, workflows, and they don't actually understand the value until they're in the chaos, right? Of, oh my God, I can't do all the things that I need to do and write my book and put the flowers together and get these photos out to my clients, right? Like it's a lot. So you wear all the hats. How can I make these hats? Maybe I want 10 hats instead of 15. Like I want it to seem a little simpler. So yeah, I'm still refining that. And how I found it was I literally started writing. There was an exercise from Tanya Dalton, who was one of my podcast guests. She was somebody I had listened to and loved, admired. And when she said yes, it was like, oh my gosh. So I did one of the exercises in her book. I think it was the pie exercise. It's like, what are you good at? What excites you? And I forget the third. I'm going to blank on it. But I literally sat with a journal and was like, I don't know what I want to do. And this systems piece came to me. I was like, I do love, even in corporate, I'd be like, oh, SharePoint, you want me to organize SharePoint? Sure. Like, we could do this better. Like, who was excited about that? Me. Nobody else.
You said SharePoint, and I'm over here like a twitch.
I know. Nobody is excited to buy it but me. But it's always been somewhere I'm like, oh, I can see a way to make it better. Why aren't we doing it this way? And I can take that back to like grade school with my mom and her kitchen. I'm like, why do you have some cereal in this cabinet, but some cereal over here? I was like, why isn't all the cereal together? Like, I've always been trying to put the puzzle pieces together and systemize and make things more efficient since then, right? It translates. So when I did this exercise, I was like, oh yeah. And that's when I started playing with a friend who has a business. She gave me access because she trusted me. She's like, sure, whatever, play around, see what you can find. And I was like, oh my gosh. And she's like, you just saved me so much time and money. This is what you need to be charging for. And I was like, oh, okay, I'd love to do this. Like,
well,
so that's how I found it.
You bring order to chaos. And so,
that's the goal.
Hey, that's your log line. I'm not good at that kind of stuff. Anyway, but I think you bring order to chaos. And so I know as a creative, an author specifically, we're already trying to figure out what tropes, what's going to be our next series. If this series is working for the marketplace, is it making us money? Is it not? Should I, we have all that just rolling around in our brain. And so the business side, it shouldn't suffer, but I think it does. It's always like, just hurry up and get it done because I have to do it by Tuesday. There's not a whole lot of planning. And I don't know too many authors that have like a business plan, a marketing plan, but it's essentially what you need.
Yeah. We could all benefit from some more detail or effort in that planning zone.
Yeah. And creatives tend to be more creative brain and not so analytical. And so that's why I like how you have yours. You're taking a real tactical approach to the stuff that we creatives usually don't want to deal with.
Yeah.
But if we would just dedicate the time and resources, we would totally benefit from it.
Yeah. And I like to think of it as too, like, again, you put in that little bit of time, carve out that time and effort up front, and you're creating so much more white space for yourself to play and be creative. So like I'm teaching my kids now who are getting more homework in 5th grade, like, let's pick the hardest thing to do first, check it off the list, and everything else is going to seem easy. So if we can put some sort of system in place and simplify, you're going to love yourself so much more later when you have all this blank space to do whatever you want with, whether it's writing or hanging out with your kids or whatever it may be.
Okay, do they buy that? Do the children buy into that? Where you do the hardest task first?
Oh, not yeah, I just tried that tonight. But I'm like, that's what I would do. Also, I told them you need to write it down because they didn't have a list of their homework. I was like, you got to write it down because checking it off is the best part. Like, I did that. It's done.
Our children, they had a planner. So by the end of the day, they'd have 15 minutes before they packed up all their stuff to copy the board into their planner. And we as parents every night had to, sign off on it. Isn't that genius?
That is. My one daughter told me we don't have planners though, but the other one said she does. So who knows?
No, that was school mandated. And so, when you went back to school and they're like, this is how we run the show. And you're going to have to sign it every night. And if they, they were pretty militant about it, but it's, setting up those life skills from now, because I think we all need to do the most difficult task first. And what do? We always procrastinate. We put it off because it's hard or it's boring or it's tedious or we don't have it all figured out.
Yeah. And I'm guilty of it too. As good as I am at it, I'm like, I'd much rather go play with my clients' workflow and make it pretty for them than like do with the thing that's on my list. And I'm like, I don't really want to do that today. Right?
To an author. And I try to make amazing graphics in Canva, but I am not a graphics designer, else I would have a degree in that. And so I have a friend who's an author and so I gravitate towards writing, right? My hard thing is I want to get 3,000 words a day because that's what gets books made. And she's like, I just like to hang out in Canva and make pretty graphics. And she has the most amazing Instagram story, Instagram feed and wall and all that. But she's like, I don't put out as many books as you. But that's our thing, right? She procrastinates because she goes and plays on Canva.
Yeah.
So I was like, well, there's worse things.
There are worse things.
For your business, you're not sitting over there like eating or Netflix and, eating food.
Yeah. There are worse things. But then at the end of the day, too, you and I had said the other day in another conversation, like as solopreneurs, if you don't show up, you're not getting paid, right?
Yeah.
So it's not like a corporate check. You could show up and maybe not have your best day, but your butt's in the seat, you're getting a paycheck.
Yeah. So do you have any tips for solopreneurs? Like, is it having a solid morning routine? Is it having a CRM system or an Asana? Or like, what is your one ride or die thing?
So many things. I definitely have a morning routine for myself that includes my Peloton. I love Peloton. And I have to get my little blue dot every day. If anybody who's listening is a Peloton fan, you'll know what I mean. But that's like my me time, and just nobody's awake yet. And that sets the tone for my day. That's one. I do time blocking, like, because I know I can see all these things on my to-do list in Asana, but if I don't then, for me, say this is the time to edit the podcast episode and check off these 5 things, I'm probably not going to do it.
Okay, so you don't have just like, hey, this is what I need to get done in a day, and it's like 1 through 10. You're literally going into your calendar and picking a time to do that task also.
Sometimes.
Okay.
Like, because like with the podcast episode, there's like 5 things on one day. I'm like, oh, I need a good chunk to do these versus send so-and-so an email. So for some things the things that I know I need to push, I will block. And for me, the podcast follow-ups get that block.
Okay. I know, because I've tried the time blocking and color coding and habit stacking, but sometimes some things don't take as long, or sometimes you don't want to do, or I don't know, sometimes you're just not in the creative mindset.
Yeah.
So I always am fascinated how people can do it and stick with it.
Yeah. And then there's also like batching, like all those mindless activities together. I'm going to take this 30 minutes and do the mindless, check all these mindless things off the list. Or I need to be networking on social media, so I'm going to set my timer. And when it goes off after 30 minutes, I know it's time to log off, because otherwise I'll scroll all day.
Okay, that is super interesting. We are a little bit over our time, but do you have time for rapid fire questions?
Sure.
All right, because everybody loves these. Okay, templates or customization, which do you prefer?
Templates all the way.
Oh.
Templates give you the flexibility to then go in and customize as needed, but you're getting it done and you're keeping things moving. I love a good template.
Okay, interesting. Okay, do you prefer daily goals or overarching goals?
I love all the goals. Let's go daily.
I'm not choosy. Okay, do you prefer in your downtime podcast or books?
Depends on my mood. I'm big into the self-help, so I love a good, like, inspiring podcast. But I also like self-help books. I'd say books were my first love, so we'll go books.
Okay, who are your favorite self-help podcasters? Repeat.
I'm not in a hot and heavy podcast zone right now, but when I am, and I don't know if she's come back, but I mentioned Tanya Dalton before. Mm-hmm. Crystal Profit is great for content creators. I love her. She was also on my show. I know, it's like when you meet your, like, oh my gosh, I know what she sounds like. I know what this is going to be. And then it is. And
fangirling, and then all of a sudden they're your guest. You're like, oh.
Yes. I'll go with those 2 for now.
Okay. Do you prefer pen and paper or digital notes?
Digital. My handwriting has declined since school days because I'm just so many. I feel like I lost the muscles. So my typing skills are superior to my handwriting.
Okay, the public schools here in Houston, they don't teach cursive anymore.
You don't either.
So how are they ever going to learn how to sign their name?
I don't know. Mine like to play with it. Like, look, I can write this, but they do not teach it.
My children are in classical education, and so yeah, they know cursive. And they're like, oh my god, why do we have to? Like, I don't know, sign your name,
sign a check.
Exactly. Okay, so do you like a structured routine or go with the flow?
Oh, I'm all about the structure. I like to have some open space that I can, be spontaneous, but I need to know, like, tomorrow we're going here. Okay, I can have my clothes ready. I can be packed, whatever I need.
Yeah. So if someone says, hey, we're going on a trip, like a flight at 8 a.m., you'd be like, I can't do that.
That I would go into a deep sweat.
Anxiety inducing.
Yes. Please tell me what exactly I need to pack and what we'll be doing and what the temperature is, how many pairs of shoes I need. Yeah.
Have you seen those reels or on TikTok or on here where they'll be like, when you get older, people say, hey, do you want to go out tonight? They're like, tonight? You're calling me today for tonight? What's a parking situation? I'm going to drive separate. If I don't like it, I'm going to leave. Have you seen those? They're hilarious.
Yes. Or like, wait, it's 9 o'clock. I can't go out now. It's 9 o'clock.
I'm already in bed.
Yeah.
I've already my teeth. Okay, do you prefer telephone calls or emails?
Probably an email.
Oh, okay.
It depends on the topic, but if you're just like one quick question, email, text. If it's I want to catch up and have a conversation, it's a phone call.
You're like,
I was thinking task driven email.
I know you're like emails because there's a workflow attached to it.
Or I can do it when I have time for it and have to pick up, stop what I'm doing right now. It depends on what it's for.
Fair enough. Do you prefer solo working or do you like teamwork? So do you like working by yourself or do you like working with your clients?
Well, I like working with my clients, but I also like solo work. I'm not very good at choosing here. Because solo, you can do it at your own pace. You can go fast, you can go slow, you can dive in where you need to. But I always love working with my clients. I have so much fun. I get to learn about their industries, their worlds, and help bring new things to life for them. So,
well, and I think too, solo work, you just need a little bit of time to like contemplate and for future casting and like kind of forecasting, where do I want to go, where do I see myself, and to me that seems really fun.
Yeah,
I get that. Okay, do you prefer 17 hats or Asana? Which one, if you had
it's
to
like apples to oranges.
I would never.
I use them for such different things. Like I need them both, but I'd say if it's like you're not, so neither of them are super techy, but if you're just starting, you need the bare bones, I would start with Asana, but I would never give either up. Well, never say never, but I'm not giving either up right now.
Yeah. Okay, do you prefer in-person meetings or virtual meetings?
Oh, in person's always best, but it's great that we can meet people from all over the country or the world with virtual or all times of day, to be flexible, but in person, you can't beat that.
Yeah. I have so many that I was like, so many author friends, I'm like, if you live close, we would be dangerous.
Yes.
Okay, last one. Do you prefer long-term planning or spontaneous decisions?
Long-term planning.
I'm almost embarrassed to ask this question.
Well, I mean, I do love the thrill of like getting it done and making a decision because it's going to move me along, but I like to have a plan.
No,
Says the girl who left her job without the plan.
Before there was a net.
Yeah.
Well, this has been so insightful. I've gotten it's been a really nice hour getting to know you more and to help deliver solutions to authors that can benefit from your services as well.
Thank you. Well, same here. I hope that your audience is feeling like systems don't have to be scary. They can be fun. They can make them colorful, and they can really help a lot and free up that white space so you can be creative and play. So that was my goal.
No, I love that. So, and if they want a consultation, a discovery call, you said, they can reach you at
KristenLettini.com or the link in my bio here on Instagram.
Great. All right. Thank you so much. I will catch up with you in the DMs.
Awesome. Thank you so much, Gigi.
All right. Bye-bye.
Bye.